Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. It is now time for my meta predictions for Toronto Regionals. Toronto is literally tomorrow when this video goes live. It's going to be absolutely wild. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be a wild time, and I cannot wait to play Toronto this week. And I've locked in the deck I'm going to be playing this tournament. I'm probably going to actually upload a vlog. I haven't done a vlog on the channel in a while, so I'm probably going to post a vlog for Toronto. Pretty excited about that. And you'll hear a little bit more insight into hopefully my run. And hopefully I make day 2. I have not yet made day 2 at Toronto yet. But yes, we're going to be talking about the meta for Toronto, my opinion on everything that's going to go down in the tournament, what decks going to be popular, what decks might win, what to expect, all that stuff I'm going to talk about in this video. I am also going to be on Trainer Hill at the end of the video to give my predictions for where the day 1 meta is going to look in terms of the graphic. How popular each deck will be talked about in this video. If y'all are new here to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 19K subs, and leave a like if you're excited for Toronto. All right, starting these off, Regidrago V-Star, the best deck in the format. It's going to be the most popular. Fairly certain that a lot of top players have been testing different decks in this format. Maybe they've been experimenting with Lost Box or that Dragapult deck with Thorns or whatever the case may be. But I'm pretty sure Drago is still going to be the deck a lot of players just play. I think it's just still the overall best deck in the format. It's still a very strong deck, and I wouldn't be surprised if Drago is probably the most played deck in the tournament, but it has a good chance of also taking down the tournament. But I do think Cloth is on a bit of a tear right now. Cloth has been winning a lot and has been doing very good. I think Cloth is going to be pretty popular this weekend. Now, the popularity is a little interesting to decipher. Like, I actually am not too sure the exact meta percentage. I have written down in the Trainer Hill section of the video where I think the deck will lie on the day 1 graphic, because I do think it'll be in the day 1 graphic 100%. It's just kind of hard to gauge at how popular the deck will really be. But I do think Cloth is going to be very good. This is just another deck that, if I'm going to this tournament, right, I don't want to take an L to Cloth. I want my deck to at least have a fine matchup into Cloth. Then, of course, we got Zard. Another deck I probably don't want to take an L to. I'm pretty sure Zard is going to be pretty popular. I know that Zard has, like, a bad Regidrago matchup, but the deck has been consistently performing well. There's a lot of people's comfort picks when they go to a tournament. It's a fairly, like, straightforward deck in general. Like, it is hard to play, kind of. Like, you have to kind of predict what you're going to do, like, the lines and stuff with Dusknoir Briar. But overall, like, Charizard is not really that hard of a deck to win with, right? You know what I mean? Like, anyone can pick up Charizard and win games with it because it's Charizard. It's just that inherently strong. And I do think it's still going to be a popular pick by a lot of players. Charizard making top 8, though, it probably will happen. I mean, Zard's been doing top 8s even in this Regidrago heavy meta for the past couple formats. Probably another deck that can make top 8 fairly easily. And then, of course, we got Miraidon, a deck that has fallen off a little bit since its dub in Sacramento. I still think this deck is really powerful. Miraidon did win Toronto last year, so I'm pretty sure some of the big players probably are going to be trying out Miraidon for this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if a few names are on a Miraidon this weekend. I think Miraidon is still a very strong deck. I think the popularity of Cloth is what scared it off, and honestly, yeah, like, taking a bad matchup into Cloth isn't ideal going into this tournament, but I think Miraidon will still be a powerful deck. It's not going to be as popular as it could have been. Maybe, like, if Toronto was right after Sacramento, this deck would have been a lot more popular, but I don't think it will be. But Miraidon making top 8, it's possible. It depends on how the meta goes, but yeah, Miraidon definitely could make top 8. We'll have to see. Gardevoir is another deck that has kind of rebounded a little bit after winning Perth, and just in general, I've seen this deck get a lot of attention online recently. Another deck that I wouldn't be surprised if a few players played it. Now, I don't know if the slow version of the deck here with Unfair Stamp and the Flutter Klefki combo is going to be more popular than the Henry Chow Turbo build with Secret Box. I think both builds are very powerful. They both do their own different things. I think Slow Guardy is a bit better right now, but the Turbo Guardy is still pretty good into Drago, right? Like, it gives you a better Drago matchup than Slow Guardy. So I think Gardevoir will still be fairly popular this weekend. Not super popular, but I think a few players will play it. It will probably be more popular than it would have been if it didn't win Perth, in all honesty. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gardevoir ended up being good. It's not even a bad play for the tournament, though, either. Like, it's got a good matchup against Cloth. Zard's close. If you play Devo, you probably beat Zard, to be honest with you. Really, the only matchups you're scared of are Lost Box, maybe, if you're not playing Flutter Mane. You're scared of Drago still, obviously. And then, of course, not a great matchup into Miraidon. Miraidon's also kind of shaky. But overall, other than that, I think you're actually favored into a lot of the other decks in the format. I guess Goldango could be kind of tough, too. But anyways, we got Iron Thorn's Dragapult. This is one of the new decks that's been getting a lot of buzz recently besides Cloth. Now, how popular is this deck going to be? I think Cloth is not only the better deck, but it's also going to be more popular than Dragapult Iron Thorns. This deck does have a bit of a footing behind it, and I do think it will be a bit more popular. It'll probably boost Dragapult's play rate up quite a bit, actually. I would be surprised if Dragapult's play rate this weekend is, like, fairly high. So just because there's different ways you can play Dragapult, right? There's the Dragapult Dusknoir decks, and then there's the Dragapult Iron Thorns deck. So that'll probably drive its play rate up quite a bit. Dragapult is definitely looking well positioned for this weekend. So if you're somebody who's been on Dragapult, I would say stick with it. I don't think Dragapult's a bad play this tournament. My only issue with Dragapult, though, is that, yeah, your Regidrago matchup is still not fantastic, but, I mean, you're playing a Stage 2 deck. Dragapult still is pretty good into most other things, and Thorns build definitely does offer you a little bit more extra power in the format. I think the Thorns build will be interesting to see how it performs again this weekend, or if it'll get, like, just bodied by a lot of their decks. Maybe, like, I'm going to be surprised the deck got top 8 again. I just don't know if the deck's going to win the tournament, or, I don't think a lot of the big players are going to be on it. Goldango. Goldango's looking pretty cool, too. This deck is, I think, getting a little bit worse right now, though. I think there's a lot of hostility towards it. The Thorns deck specifically is not great for the deck. But overall, like, it's still a pretty strong deck. Like, you have good match, or at least 50-50s into, like, Drago, Charizard. I think your Cloth matchup's favored. You're probably 50-50 into Miraidon. You're taking, like, a lot of, like, 50-50s, and you're, like, one decent matchup is, like, Raging Bolt and Cloth, which aren't really bad matchups to take good matchups to. The problem with the deck, though, is with the rise of the Thorns Bolt deck. That deck bodies you. They have Toedscruel and Iron Thorns. That's kind of scary. This deck can't beat Control or Stall, so if more Control and Stall decks do well this weekend or see more play, then that'll hurt Goldango's play rate. But Goldango's still a fairly strong deck, and it might be popular. We'll have to see, though. I'm interested to see where Goldango falls. But yeah, it's definitely not in a bad spot. It could make top 8 again. It seems like Goldango is another deck that keeps popping up in the top 8. Tropios is another deck that's kind of been under the radar recently. It's not a bad deck either right now. I think it's actually fairly solid. The problem is your Cloth matchup is a little shaky, and that's the one thing that probably scares some people away from wanting to play this deck is because it doesn't really have a great time in a Cloth. But it's still a fairly strong deck overall. It doesn't really do anything like crazy special like in this format, but it's still just a very strong, consistent deck that a lot of top players might pilot and just bring to success. Maybe DDG will play it again. Who knows? Lost Box. It's a bit of a weird one, man. I think Lost Box is actually pretty strong in the format. I mean, it beats so many decks right now. The problem is you just have an abysmal Regidrago matchup. You're taking a bad matchup into probably the most popular deck in the room. I don't know if I like that, you know what I mean? And there isn't really any solution to beating Regidrago. Games can be close. Like, it's not a complete wash or anything. Like, you have Manaphy and Pikachu. It's still winnable, but, like, it's just such an unfavorable matchup. You know what I mean? Like, Drago still beats Lost Box about 70% of the time, even if you have Manaphy and Pikachu and you play really well. It's just a tough deck to win with sometimes. Also, I don't think your matchup into Miraidon is very good. If they take the first two, you probably just lose. But I do think that Lost Box beats almost everything else in the format that isn't Regidrago, right? And that's the one trait about the deck. If you want to play a deck, if you want to super high roll the tournament, right, or play that, roulette game and just dodge Drago the entire weekend, Lost Box could be the deck for you. You just have to, like, master it. But Lost Box will probably still be a little popular. There's actually a lot of people in Toronto that do like playing the deck for the record. Then we got Dragapult Dusknoir. Like I said, Dragapult's play rate's going to be fairly high this weekend just because there's two versions of the deck running around. And the Dragapult Dusknoir deck will definitely be, played too. It's not a bad play either. It might be better than the Thorns build, to be honest with you. We'll see, though. Then we got Raging Bolt. I think Raging Bolt actually will gain a little bit more steam this weekend. I don't know how popular it's actually going to be. That's a tough one. I don't think it's going to be the most popular deck in the room anymore. I think we're past that now. But this deck might actually not be a bad deck for this weekend, right? It's got a good time into Regidrago, which is already going to be really popular. It beats up on Dragapult decks, which is really good. Your Miraidon matchup's not bad. Your worst matchups are going to be like Cloth, Lost Box, Goldango. Charizard obviously isn't great either, but I don't know, like, Raging Bolt doesn't seem that bad right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it saw a little bit more play this weekend. It's not going to be as popular as it used to be, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Raging Bolt ends up being like, the second most popular deck. But I don't think it's going to happen this time around. But I do think it's still, like, not bad. And then we got Lugia, another deck that actually I could see making top 8. This is a deck that I think a lot of people are not really thinking about right now. Not many Dragolists are teching for it. There's not a lot of Temple going around. But there is a chance, though, you might hit Drago the Temple. Temple's still okay to Cloth, obviously. They might also run Haxorus in the deck, too, which would suck. But I would not be surprised if Lugia actually saw play this weekend and did well. Definitely a top 8 is definitely in the view for Lugia. It's a deck that easily could make top 8 this weekend. The problem with the deck, though, is consistency issues and dealing with Thorns and Miraidon, which are both going to be fairly popular this weekend. That's the one thing that scares me about playing Lugia. I think if I'm playing Lugia this weekend, I'm probably going to be considering a Fluttermane or a Klefki in the deck. Just to counter the Thorns and the Miraidon decks, because those are bad matchups, right? Like, Miraidon you can beat, but, like, Thorns is literally unwinnable. You have to use your V-Star power to beat Thorns. So probably tech a Flutter or Klefki this weekend if you're on Lugia. I gotta talk about Ancient decks for a sec. Ancient Box doesn't seem like a bad play this weekend. Kind of an underdog deck. You're really only taking a bad matchup into like Regidrago with Gudra, maybe, and then also your Zard matchup's never been that good. But other than that, I think, the deck's fairly solid. It can beat Miraidon, it can beat Goldango, it can beat Raging Bolt, it can beat Cloth pretty easily, I think. Like, it's a pretty solid, well-rounded single price deck. It just doesn't do anything special. And again, you're going to struggle into some of those big EX decks. Like, I don't think your Dragapult Thorns matchup is great. Your Dragapult Dusknoir matchup's not good. The big Pokemon are what's going to hurt this deck's success rate. And then we got Turbo Moon. This deck actually did win the most recent late night tournament. So I think that will help it, gain a little bit more steam this weekend. I don't think it's going to be like that popular or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if Turbo Moon saw a bit more play than, we were maybe used to at this point in time. It's a pretty solid deck. I don't think it really does anything super crazy, but it's got a lot of really cool plays it can make with Koraidon and the Pekron and the Baby Moon and stuff. So I think it's still going to be like a decent deck. Probably going to, see a bit of play this weekend. Top 8, maybe, question mark. Palkia decks. Palkia is definitely on the decline right now from last format, but Palkia Noctowl did actually do decent in, I think it was Stuttgart. And I wouldn't be surprised if this deck, had another decent day 2 finish. Top 8 is a bit more of a reach, to be honest with you, but I don't know, definitely could have a good run. Palkia Dusknoir is another deck that it has fallen off a lot recently, but I think that this deck is still, like, not bad. I don't know how good it can do in the tournament, like, maybe top 32, maybe top 16. Top 8, maybe a little bit out of reach, but Palkia Dusknoir isn't really a bad deck either right now. Just, it beats up on the evolving decks, like Dragapult, Charizard obviously being pretty good. And then we got stall control decks to talk about. So I think Snorlax will see a bit more play this weekend. I think, Snorlax is a good deck for a tournament where, like, the meta's wide open. Not many decks are really respecting Snorlax, which is obviously a good thing for the deck. Kind of like Lugia, right? If no deck's respecting you, the deck just gets inherently better. I don't know. Yeah, Snorlax pretty good. Top 8, maybe. I don't know if I can win the tournament, but top 8. Control, obviously, it's a deck that does really good in online tournaments. The regional success is a little less good than, like, Snorlax is usually, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pidgey Control got a couple top 32s under its belt this weekend. It's very possible. And then I want to talk about the attacking walls deck. This deck has been doing decent in the past couple of regionals. This deck is cool. I think it's kind of falling off a little bit right now, though, so I wouldn't really expect this deck to do that well, but I wanted to highlight it anyways, because it still exists, and there are still different ways you can build it with, like, Milotic or something, or you want to play this, like, Mimikyu Ogre Pond build. Quathorns. Quathorns did do good in Perth, right? A few of the players from Japan were on it in Perth, so maybe this deck will have a decent weekend in Toronto. I think the Dragapult Thorns deck is maybe a better way to play the deck, but Quathorns is still strong overall. Like, it's still a very annoying deck, but it is obviously, we've come to expect at this point, it's counterable. People know their lines in the matchup and stuff. It's not a perfect deck, but it isn't a terrible deck either. It's one of those decks that, like, you don't have to take bad matchups or good matchups. You just have to be annoying and just win games by cheesing and grinding your opponent through. That's basically what this deck is at this point. Gouging Fire, it's a cool deck. I want it to make top 32, top 16 again, like it's been doing the past couple formats. The deck is sadly falling off a little bit, though. I think even some of the Gouging Fire players themselves have even said on Twitter, like, nah, the deck's dead. Then we got Charizard Terapagos. This is like another, like, under the radar deck that surprisingly has not had as many good results since LEIC. I think this deck is still really powerful. I don't know how good it is in this, like, cloth heavy format. I would imagine this deck's okay in a cloth, though. It doesn't seem terrible as long as you don't get donked. Like, it doesn't seem bad in a cloth. Yeah, Charizard Terapagos. I think it's cool. I want to see it do well. Let's see, though. Then Bayonet, another deck that, it exists. It's not going to be popular. I don't think it's going to be very played, but, a couple players might do well with it. It's like a sneaky, kind of under the radar deck. Players don't really know how to play against it properly sometimes. It's annoying to play against. Its positioning is kind of weird right now, though, overall, within the meta, like with what's popular. I don't even know if you beat Cloth, but I don't know, maybe you do. Maybe I'm trolling on that one. And then we got Shempao. This deck has been getting, like, somewhat good results in the past couple of regionals. I don't think it's going to do it again, but, Shempao making top 32, it could happen, bro. It could happen. All right, last 2 decks I want to highlight here. I want to talk about Archaludon real quick. Not really a super top meta deck, but Archaludon has also been getting, like, somewhat decent results in the past couple of tournaments. We'll hopefully see it continue. I think the Dialga build is, like, maybe the best way to play, but also the one that has the most success rate right now. So maybe we'll see some Archaludon Dialga do well in Toronto. We'll have to see on that one. I think Archaludon is due for, like, a decent run eventually, because it's been getting there. Finally, I want to mention Hydreigon, my favorite Pokemon. I want to see a Hydreigon do well this weekend. I don't know if it's going to happen. Hydreigon is, like, not... I mean, the problem is, though, it just takes a really bad Drago matchup, right? But other than that, I mean, Hydreigon's not a bad deck. So, like, I don't know. We'll have to see if somebody can have a better run with Hydreigon. It hasn't really got anything higher than, like, not even a top 128, I don't think, at this point. Or maybe it has, but it hasn't really gotten a decent placement. Maybe someone will cash with Hydreigon this weekend. It's possible. You never know. That's my dream wish for the tournament this weekend. All right, finally, we got the Trainer Hill data here. So yeah, my meta prediction. So I got Regidrago at 14%. I don't know, that might be a little too high. But I definitely can see it being around like 12 to 14% of the format. Yeah, but 12% is probably a little bit better. It'll definitely be in that range of like 12 to 13% for sure. Charizard, I can see being 9%. Same thing with Cloth. I think both Cloth and Charizard are decks that are going to be in that like 9, 10% range. 10% for both Cloth and Charizard does seem a little high. But it is possible that these decks are in that range, right? It's very possible we see Cloth Charizard in that 9% range. Cloth could be a bit higher. I feel like this deck's a little bit more hype right now. Also, it's a lot easier to pilot. Charizard is a harder deck to play than Cloth is. Cloth is a very easy deck to play. Maybe Cloth could be around 10%. Yeah, 9 might be a bit more lower than I expect. Yeah, 10 might be a bit more accurate for Cloth. I think Cloth will probably be more played than Charizard, but not by much. Charizard will still be popular. Miraidon, I think, can be around 7. Same thing with Raging Bolt. These two decks are just fairly popular still, and I think they could be around 7% of the format. Dragapult, also in that 7% range. I think we're combining the two different versions of Dragapult together. I don't know how many people will actually be serious about playing Dragapult Thorns to this tournament. That's the thing that holds the deck back. I just don't think that Thorns Dragapult deck is going to be as heavily respected as some people think. And I don't know, 7%, I think it's around that range. Probably, if we're combining the two builds together, Dragapult Thorns will probably be like 3 to 4%, and then normal Dragapult will be like 3% also. So we're just combining the two together. Lost Box, 5%. Again, there's a lot of people in Toronto who like to play the deck. It's a fairly popular deck in the Toronto scene. Yeah, 5% seems decent for the deck. Goldengo, 5% might be a bit low for Goldengo. I can see 6%. The deck is falling off a little bit, though. Like I said, it's not as good as it was for, like, Sacramento because, people are now, respecting it more with the thorns and stuff. And there's just more aggression towards what Goldengo is trying to do, which I think holds the deck back right now. But, yeah, like 6% is pretty accurate, I think, for Goldengo. It'll probably be more popular than Lost Box. Gardevoir, 5%. I can't see, maybe 6%. That feels a little too high for Guardy. I don't think the deck is that great right now. It's like a pretty solid play, but I don't think Gardevoir is like, I think a lot of players are just scared of the Regidrago, right? That's the issue. I don't know if 5% is accurate. I don't know if it'll be higher than like 5%, man. Like maybe 6%, maybe. Even then, dude, I don't know. That feels a little bit too high, to be honest. Like 6% even feels high, but I could be wrong. Tropico, same thing, 5%. The deck's not very popular right now. Lugia, 4%. Lugia could honestly be lower, like maybe even 3%. The deck definitely, a lot of players are just scared of playing the deck. But I think 4% is accurate for Lugia this weekend. It has been getting some placements in the past couple tournaments. Some people might be also thinking that Lugia is a good play because no one's respecting it right now. You just have to dodge all the yellow. And also not Brick as much as you probably wanted Brick. Snorlax, 3%. 4% could be a bit more generous for the deck, to be honest with you. But I don't know. 3% seems fine for Snorlax. 4% might be a bit better. I can see Turbo Moon being 3% too. The deck has been getting a little bit more popular. If we're combining the two Moon decks together, the Ancient Box and the Turbo build, I would probably put it in like the 5% meta range. Maybe let's do that. Let's put Turbo Moon at 5. We gotta lower the other decks to 12%. Yeah, Moon maybe at like 5% if we're combining Ancient Box and Turbo together. Palkia variants, probably 3% range. And that's all I really got for the graph, because then we got other decks in 12%. Again, this meta is really wide open right now, so there's just so many decks you can possibly play right now. There's a good chance we see other be at like 12 to 10% of the meta. Like 10% is maybe a bit more accurate for other. I just don't know where to put the other percentages. Like I can't really reasonably put Charizard above 9%. Miraidon and Raging Bull seem accurate. Like I don't know. I feel like this is a fairly accurate assessment of what the day one graph is going to look like. I mean, you can debate putting Gardevoir a little bit higher, maybe putting Dragapult a little higher. Like Dragapult 8%, Gardevoir 6%, maybe is a bit more accurate in all honesty. But I can see this being a bit accurate to what we're going to see the day one graph look like. I think Regidrago will still be the most popular deck in the room. It is the deck to beat. It has the highest chance of winning the tournament. I could definitely see Cloth and Charizard in top 8. Miraidon can make top 8 too. Dragapult maybe in top 8. Goldengo's another deck. Wouldn't be surprised if it got top 8. Gardevoir top 8 too. And Lugia also top 8. Those are all decks that definitely reasonably could make top 8. it's really hard to kind of judge as to what deck can actually win the tournament right now. Again, the meta is a little bit too wide open, but if we're going to give, the best deck to win the tournament, it would have to be Regidrago because it is the best deck in the format right now. But somebody this weekend might be playing a deck that just beats Regidrago, has a good run, surprise run in the tournament, and rolls through the tournament and just bodies everyone and wins the regional. That also is very possible to happen. But I hope you enjoyed the video here talking about my meta predictions for Toronto regionals. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun time. Can't wait to play some Pokemon, have some fun, and try some stuff out. I've already locked in what deck I'm going to be playing, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my vlog, and hopefully tournament report if I actually get CP this weekend, or fingers crossed make day 2. I'm excited, man, and hopefully some of y'all in Toronto later today or tomorrow. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all later. Let me know what your predictions for Toronto are down below, and I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.